What is up, you guys? Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Explain It podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Stephen Hunt.
And I'm Ingrid Hernandez.
And boy, do we have a guest for you today.
Mhm.
We are so thrilled because it's so directly close to our hearts. It's so close to our business model. Everything that I've been involved in real estate is around this entire world that we're about to talk about. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce the incredible Isabel Guarino as I try my best to bring her on.
Hey!
What's up?
Hey there. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We're so excited.
Yeah, this is such a complete honor. I know you were on this podcast with us last year, and it's so cool to kind of see how things progress, even in both our lives. You're out here in Arizona, continuing to do the good work to support residential assisted living, and I see that growing, and it intersects so much with the work that we do, but also the communities we're around. Like, you're a known character.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, which is fantastic. And kudos to you. And I love all the things that you're doing. I mean, even beyond RAL, right? You're doing things around being a young entrepreneur and all the things that comes with and the both the stress and also the joy of it all.
Right.
So,
there's so much to unpack here, but let's back it up. Let's go all the way back. Who is Isabel Guarino? How did she get into what she's doing? What does she do even? You know, because even though we know and we're super excited, there's probably audience members who may not know you.
Yeah. So I'm Isabel, and I got started in this industry after watching my dad be a real estate investor for 30 plus years, doing all sorts of different things, fix and flip, wholesale, multifamily, really everything. And he went all in on assisted living when my grandmother broke her hip, and she needed care and assistance. So I knew, like, from the family side of it, what was going on, that, hey, grandma needs care. We're going to go look at homes and facilities. And everything we looked at was just like, oh, I don't want to leave my goldfish, let alone my grandmother here. So I understood, like, theoretically there's an issue, but my dad really saw a solution. He's like, wait, we're going to pay $5,000 a month for her to live in one of these, or we could own and operate it, cash flow, and she could live for free. So, knowing really not much about this industry at all, knowing only about real estate, he got in buying his first existing RAL with the intent to move my grandmother in. And as I was watching all of this, I had just graduated college. I was a flight attendant at the time, and I'm seeing what he's doing. And I always had interest in real estate, but this really struck a chord with me. And I said, I want to learn more. I want to know more. So I got in kind of on the ground floor with him there with that first care home. We ended up getting 2 more, investing in over 50 across the country, and then teaching and training others how to do this for the last 10 plus years. So it's been a wild ride, but it really all started, with my dad seeing that real specific need for our own family member.
That is so awesome. And to see how fast that grew too. Oh my God. How long ago was this when grandma fell and you guys decided to do this? 14 years ago. Wow. Do you still hold on to all of those properties and continue to expand from there?
Yep. So we still own and operate that one, as well as the 2 others that we've had. We've had those now in the portfolio for 14 years, and then 12 and 12 for the other 2. So it's been a while, and the cash flow continues to increase. So I'm not mad at it.
Oh, that's so good. Well, it's such a need. It's such a need. I see it on a daily basis. It's huge. And I love what you're doing here. But what is residential assisted living? Because when most people think of assisted living, they're thinking, okay, a big facility. I call them communities, but a big facility where people go. It's a little bit sterile. It kind of feels like just very cookie cutter, people trying to make as much money as possible. But residential, that's a completely different world.
Right. We all, for the most part, grew up in single family homes. So when now you're older and you're being told you need to go move into a facility, and it just feels like, wait, what? This isn't what I'm used to. This isn't what I know. So I think it's really that kind of perfect blend for someone who is uncomfortable with those next stages and the options that are currently available. It's a residential home in a residential setting, typically single level. Think 300 to 500 square feet per resident. Depending on where you are in the US, you'll be allowed to have somewhere between 6 and 16 residents in a residential home. In Arizona, we're limited, God bless you, here to 10. So all of my homes are 10 bed, 10 bath homes. They didn't start that way. we converted them to become that way. But they're really just large, luxury, beautiful homes in upscale areas that allows the seniors to stay in something that is a home, not something that's home-like.
Right. Oh, it's so good. Now, there's obviously a lot of red tape that goes along with this too, as for any industry, right? So I'm assuming, and I know these are rhetorical questions because I know the answers on them, but I'm assuming here that you can't just go buy any house and say this is going to be residential assisted living. For all the investors out there that want to go try to make $5,000 a room, maybe it's not that easy.
Exactly. There are a lot of rules and regulations in this industry. And honestly, I love that because I don't think just anyone should be able to get in. If you don't care about seniors and you only want to make a quick buck, this is not for you. There are a lot of rules and regs when it comes to the physicality of the home, like square footage, fire suppression or sprinklers, wide enough hallways and doorways, all sorts of different regulations you need within the home. It doesn't have to be ADA compliant, but you want it as close to that as possible to really help the seniors move and groove around as easily as they need to be able to. On the other hand, you're also hiring licensed staff. So the physical home has a license. You're hiring a licensed administrator who's going to run all the day-to-day in the home, similar to a property manager in the real estate world. And they're hiring your licensed caregivers who do the 24/7 care of the seniors. So you yourself may not have a license, but there are a lot of licenses involved, a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork, and that is a good thing.
Oh,
I agree.
I would agree with that.
And what I was going to add, and I think at the time you and I spoke, I was buying my first RAL.
Yes.
But as a landlord. And so I do think that if you're not sure how to get into this, becoming a landlord is a good approach as you start learning more and more about it. What was really cool about my operator, and I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago, I walked another property with her and we were potentially going to partner on it because I already saw how well she was running the property that I was renting to her, that I am currently renting to her.
Yep.
And I will say, as a landlord, with all the things that we deal with, in terms of people not paying on time, like, is the property being managed? Like, all the things, like, I've had a spectacular experience so far as a landlord because the rent is paid on time. And like, there was a window that was broken recently and they were just letting me know because in our lease, we actually wrote anything less than $1,500 that's not a major system, they have to fix.
Yep.
And so that's not something you would typically get a tenant to fix. And so it's in her best interest because she has to make sure she maintains a safe and clean environment for the residents. So it truly is a win-win for me as a landlord, even if you can't get to that part where you're now getting all the licenses and all the things that are required. And it could evolve into something. Like I was saying, she walked the property, another property, Suede actually had it for sale, and it didn't quite work out because to your point, Isabel, there's some areas, even though in Arizona, you can have 10 residents, there's some cities that won't allow more than 6 or 7 is my understanding, like Chandler and Gilbert. I don't remember all the things.
They do limit you, from what I know. Actually, all of the cities limit you to 5 unless you add fire suppression, so sprinklers. Then you can go up to 10. But I do think Mesa is one of those weird ones that limits you to 5 unless you were grandfathered in. So there are certain cities where you can't do that. I'll also say that the rates in Mesa may not work out as well anyways. So demographically, I probably wouldn't pick Mesa over like a Paradise Valley or a Scottsdale or something that's more up and coming, like a Gilbert or even Queen Creek. Mesa just may not be able to get those rates. So demographics is another big one to consider too when you're thinking about what properties are going to work, because it's not the same game as a lot of other real estate investors play. Let me get the best bang for my buck. I don't want to pay full price for a home and this, that, and the other. That's not the game we're playing. It's all about what that home can bring you in and who's living in that area and what can they afford. Because if the right people aren't there, doesn't matter if it's the Taj Mahal, like, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. Mhm.
definitely. And I can see from a demographic area, obviously Scottsdale, some of those areas, PV, they're always going to be very, very desirable. And I'm sure they get great pricing because I'm assuming most of the people you work with are going to be private pay
Yeah.
that you're usually working with. Now, I did experience this. I actually sold the residential assisted living that Ingrid owns to Ingrid.
Yeah.
It was a property that I held, and I had transitional living. I've worked with sober living. I've done a bunch of different styles of group homes,
Yeah.
just not residential assisted living per se. And I know that for them, they also liked the outskirts. They liked the Apache junctions. They liked the places that were a little bit less accessible because from an insurance reimbursement standpoint, they were actually getting reimbursed because they were serving a community that wasn't necessarily getting the help that they need. Is that something that you're seeing as well on the residential assisted living side?
Not so much, because we do focus on the private pay clients. So they're not usually, they are living in those affluent areas, right? The target market we go after isn't actually the senior themselves. Who we're marketing to is what we call daughter Judy. So it's the adult child of the senior living in the home. So 50 to 70 years old, twice the median income, homeowner, college grad. Those are the things that we're looking for. And where they live, eat, work, sleep, play is where we want the home to be, because they don't want to drive 45 minutes outside of town because it's cheaper. They want the illusion that they're going to drive by every single day on their way home from work. So within a 5-mile radius of where they live is the key on where you want these to be.
Oh, that's
Okay,
fantastic.
can you
I love
walk?
the illusion.
I know. I think maybe if you could clarify that a little on why you're using the word illusion. And as somebody who was a caregiver for 8 years, I understand where you're coming from. So why would you say illusion?
A lot of daughter Judys, when they first move in, when they first have their loved ones move in, they are under the illusion that they think that they're going to come every day or at least every week. And then they drop their loved one off. And in the beginning, they are coming more often. They are checking in more often, but it does slowly start to fade over time. They get busy, life happens, things go on. And that it is kind of what it is. And so oftentimes we actually still accept checks for the residents, like for people to pay for their, fee to live in the home, because 99% of the time, the senior is not the one paying you to live in the home. It is that adult child or long-term care insurance or someone else, right? It's not them. So we still have like a little box where they can come drop off checks, and we encourage them to do that because it is their built-in once a month time that they're going to come see mom or dad. Other, sometimes people live out of state. They don't come really much at all, maybe twice a year. And that's hard because these seniors, they need that interaction. So if they were at home alone, that would be terrible. At least here they're surrounded by friends their own age, their caregivers, and then we fill the home with activities and all sorts of fun stuff going on every single day so that they are never getting bored or feeling lonely. Volunteers are coming in, but many times it's not their family who's coming, daily or weekly to visit.
Yeah. And well, I love that you kind of rigged it for them so that you do have that interaction. Are you starting to incorporate more technology too, like video feeds and things like that? So for those that are further away, it's easier to have some, I would say, more personal interaction.
Many seniors do come in and they have their own iPhones, so they'll FaceTime or do things like that. We do also have house computers and iPads that float around so they can have conversations with loved ones. And if we notice that they haven't been getting a call in a while or they're having a down day, we will say, text a family member, hey, do you want to talk to mom right now, and see if we can get them on FaceTime. So we will try to, bring that family aspect in. We have a lot of holiday parties, a lot of different functions going on within the home, but life is life, and sometimes, and people don't always have the opportunity to come as much as they'd like.
I love your practical sense about it, because we can sit here and judge, but even my friends, like once you get into something like entrepreneurship or running a business, it's really not that easy to like break away, especially and depending on where you are in your cycle of becoming that entrepreneur. Like for me, it's really hard for me to prioritize a lot of things. And it's why, one of the ways we've rigged this is every Wednesday we have this podcast at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and it's on the block calendar. But if if you don't do things like that and prioritize the things that are important, it's hard for that to make your calendar. So I really do appreciate that. And as someone who has worked in this industry, what I really love about Rouse is that the ratio, like the reason they're able to actually observe that, mom is down, dad is down, they need to get into a FaceTime and contact a loved one, is because they have the flexibility to observe that. When you go into these facilities, albeit I don't think the facilities have any ill intention in this way. It's just easier when you have a smaller ratio of caregiver to resident.
Well, you're talking about scaling an organization, right? If you're a
Mhm.
Brookdale, yeah, you have the same thing every time because it's repeatable. It's the same thing with us doing property fix and flips. It's fun on your first few to make them really custom and cool. But after a while, you're like, I could save myself a lot of time and a lot of headache and a lot of money if I just did the same thing
Yeah.
every single time. So you know what you're getting. That's
Yeah.
the brand that they've created. Now, I do have a couple questions on this too, because I want to get into the operation of it all, because I know people are going to be so interested in that, wondering if they should be a landlord, if they should be an operator, what's the money difference look like, all that kind of stuff. But before I even ask that question, I do want to hit on the marketing, like you said, to Judy, daughter Judy.
Yeah.
I've worked with so many daughter Judys. Literally, their name were Judy. They either lived in Washington, Texas, or they were somewhere in the Valley, but typically out of state people. How are you going after and targeting those people? Because when I look at an assisted living community, whether it's memory care, whoever it is, most of their leads are going to be coming from the hospital systems, case managers, social workers, which I'm sure are still great resources for you to have relationships with, and then placement agents as well, which ends up costing money for the residential assisted living community. So I'm kind of curious on that side. How are you targeting the kids? Because you're still talking, like you said, 50 to 70-year-olds, people that might not still be tech savvy.
Yep. Everything you just named are great referral sources. Placement agents are a huge one. And especially in our market here in Arizona, a lot of them do prefer the smaller community options. We also have a unique thing in that we have over 3,000 group homes in Maricopa County alone. So that includes clean and sober and board and care and all sorts of things, along with residential assisted living. Other cities like Cincinnati, they have 8
Wow.
in their entire city. So here we have a different problem. We don't necessarily have to educate the market. A lot of people here understand that there are bigger, smaller, all sorts of options. In other communities, because we work nationally with people all over the country, they sometimes don't even have these in their local areas. So they don't have placement agents. We're very lucky that we have a lot of those resources, and those are excellent resources. But really, boots on the ground marketing, relationships in the community, nothing can beat that. For example, befriending the local churches, synagogues, temples, elder law attorneys, hospice agencies, all sorts of different people who are in the senior community that may not be exactly the senior community. For example, churches right now, the average age in a church is 60 years old. Younger people are not coming to church as much as older people are. Well, 60 is perfect for me. So a church is not labeled as a 55 plus community, but walk inside one. It sure as heck looks like it. So, that's an amazing resource for me. But I also think when you are building those relationships, I always encourage people to do something that's natural for them. Don't join the local gun club, even though it's a lot of people who are 50 to 70, if you're anti-gun, right? Like you need to join something and be in a community that makes sense to you and make those strategic relationships. There's someone who comes to church every week, but they sit in the back pew and they don't have any friends in that community. There's someone else who comes every week, passes out bulletins, and knows every single person who walks in the door. Who do you want to be friends with? The second one, right? She's the one who's going to be that strategic partner. And when she knows what you do, she's going to tell everybody who needs that resource. And it's totally free to you. So it is a lot of legwork to build that relationship and become known as that person in the community. But once you are, it pays off tenfold.
Oh, it's so good. I love that. And that's a very similar approach that I took across the board as I got involved in every community. What a lot of people don't also understand that are in the real estate space, that are looking at the residential assisted living or assisted living in general, is that it's just like anything else. There are meetups, there's hangout spots. Everybody knows everybody. The top performers know the top performers. How do you get into that network? How do you talk to all of them? How do you befriend all of them? How do you get them to want you to be at their child's birthday party?
Yep.
That's the relationship we're looking to build with everybody on our side of it, at least. So that's really awesome to hear. Now, operations. So we'd have the opportunity to be a landlord, and we have the opportunity to be an operator.
Yep.
I'm curious, as we move on to the operator side of it, how much work is entailed on that? Is that a job you're showing up to every single day? How do you have safety? I mean, I've had certain situations where I've placed seniors, and I've gotten calls from those rals saying, "Hey, Dolores escaped. Do you know where she is?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean she escaped?" "No, I don't know where she is. No, I'm not like taking her out for ice cream on a Saturday night. That's like not what happened."
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, how are people operating, seeing if that even makes sense for somebody, and then shifting it over to just being the landlord?
Yeah. The landlord option is amazing. We always tell people there's kind of 3 ways to get involved, and one of them is just owning the real estate and leasing it out to someone who's going to do this. It's a beautiful way to get involved because the silver tsunami is coming. There's going to be more opportunity for this than we've ever seen before in our country. So awesome, amazing opportunity. You could be making up to twice the fair market rent, just like Ingrid saying, not in charge of maintenance. It's a long-term contract. I just chatted with a client about a month ago, and he called me. He's like, I just got a 12-year lease for an RAL. So these are like no turnover. Like, that's amazing, right? For someone who's used to every year having to hit the ground running and get another family in or get another whatever. And
And we have built-in increases too. So mine is a 5-year contract. Every year it increases by 3%.
Boom, baby. See,
Yeah.
I love it. That's exactly what we're talking about. So amazing opportunity to be a landlord on this. I will say that is kind of the easy part, because especially if you are already in real estate, you kind of know how this works, and it's much easier than what you're probably doing with single family landlording. So that's kind of the easy part. The operator part is more difficult, right? You are the one who is hiring that licensed administrator, they're hiring those licensed caregivers. You're setting up the handyman, the landscaper, all the contractors who are coming in. You're getting all the systems in place for the home so that it can run properly. And systems are key to success, because if you do want to be more passive and not active, not in the home, right? I spend about 5 hours a week on all 3 of my care homes. Most of those 5 hours are on Zoom meetings or phone calls or texting. I don't visit them really much at all. I don't think I've been since like March to my homes, maybe. Like, I try to go once a quarter when I have an appointment out that way or something, but many times I don't even go because I don't need to be there.
Yeah.
Someone needs to be there, but it doesn't need to be me. The administrator needs to be making sure that the caregivers are there 24/7. And if they call out, guess what? I'm not getting that call, right? The administrator gets it, and they fill it with another caregiver or fill the shift themselves. Why would they call me? I'm not even licensed to go in and do the shift. So I'm useless in that point. So being the operator, you can be passive and hands off, but you have to build the systems and have the right staff. That administrator is the key to your success. So really, the gal you're partnering with, Ingrid, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know, but she may be the administrator, which helps being she's the hands-on one who's doing all that day to day. That's a position we hire for, and there's just more levels to it. But regardless, they're really the lifeblood of the business.
Okay, you said there was 3. So was that 2?
That's number 2. The third way is just simply being a JV partner or private lender. You know, I talk to people every day who are getting a whopping 0% on their money, and they're looking for something that's safe, secure, that gives them purpose, that they feel good about. And this is a beautiful opportunity to make pretty good return on your money and actually get that heart, checkbox too. It's not just the physical checkbox. You feel good about what you're doing and what you're able to provide. So investing as well, just monetarily, not in real estate, is also another option.
I love that.
That's so good. Now, from an income perspective, if we had to talk numbers, we can use average, numbers on this. I know for the property that I sold to Ingrid that she has somebody in there now with a great lease. That's so awesome. So happy for you on that. But I know
he's happy, but he's kind of mad.
Should I have sold that property? Anyway, I know that a long-term rental on that side probably would have been closer to $2,300, $2,200 for a long-term rental, but you're getting probably closer to $5,000, right? Like Isabel said, it's close to at least double.
It's 45
market rent.
well, now it's $4,600 a month. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Mhm.
What does that look like on that side if she was the operator? What are most people looking to bring in from a gross perspective as an operator?
So like a super, super average 10-bed home here in the Arizona market, let's just say that people are paying, well, average right now here is $5,500 a month. Let me grab my little math so I don't do it wrong. $5,500 a month here in Arizona times by 10 residents. You've got 55,000 coming in every single month, but you're not taking all that home.
No.
It's going to cost you like 35,000 a month to have the staff, get the food, the activities, cable, everything. And probably, I mean, we're going to increase that rent to like up to like 10,000 is what I'm thinking is a lot more reasonable on that. That's still leaving you with $10,000 a month as that owner operator. So it could even double what she's receiving on that. And it is a bit more work to set it up, but over the cost of, over time, for example, that 5,500, if you would have talked to me 2 years ago, it was 4,500.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2 more years, what's it going to be? That 10,000 is just going to keep going up. So yes, the cost of food goes up. Yes, the cost of, electricity goes up, all this stuff. So our 35,000 is going to go up, but the average rate to live in the home has gone up 87% over the last 20 years. And
Wow.
it's going to continue to skyrocket for the next 20 or 30 years because the silver tsunami of seniors is coming and there's just not enough beds. I think we're 1.3 million beds short right now.
Wow.
And we're about to double the amount of seniors who need care and assistance. So this is a major crisis or a mega opportunity, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So another issue that I see that comes up on that too, and I'm curious how you overcome this, is I also used to work in staffing and recruiting before I got into the world of real estate and entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I had to find for a lot of companies was caregivers, were people that were either licensed RNs to be at the properties or caregivers. And it was one of the most challenging things to hire for in terms of finding the talent. And a lot of these companies ended up turning into full-time recruiting businesses, essentially, or talking to me every single day trying to find people. Is that an issue that you guys are also seeing?
It is the biggest issue that we have now and we will continue to have.
Yes.
And it's great to talk to you guys because we get to have a good educated conversation since both of you have such a background in this. So I love being able to talk to you guys about this. That is the number one job in our entire country today, is home health or health aides that we are lacking, because it's not just for, assisted living, but people want in-home health as well. And there's just not enough people getting into this industry. And, 80% of this industry is currently run by immigrants. So, there's issues going on there of getting the right people over who are trained correctly, who are able to help out our seniors. If there's a lack, then we're going to suffer. And that's where you see, for example, sometimes you walk into a restaurant and they say, we don't have any seats, but you see open tables and you're like, what's going on? Well, maybe the second chef didn't show up and so they can't get the food out fast enough. So they've got to slow up. Sometimes that's what's happening in these care homes, where they may have beds available, but they can't fill them because they don't have the staff to do it. A Brookdale, a Sunrise, and Atrium, they'll fill it because all they're thinking about is money. So they don't care. They'll overwork those staff. And like we said earlier, the ratios may be 30-1, 50-1. Somebody no-shows, sorry, like good luck. That's sick. That's wrong. And it should be illegal. There are no national or state rules around ratios. So in our homes, we recommend 4-1 or 5-1. And it really is a lot better, not just for the senior, but for the staff member too. So when that caregiver, when you're calling them in for a shift and they're either going to go 50-1 or 5-1 and get paid the exact same, which shift do you think they want to show up for? It's really one of those situations where we're offering the better opportunity for them. So they're happier to take our shifts, where they're not being used, abused, and, yelled at for not giving the best care. The system is set up to fail them. We can say that there's bad caregivers all day, but the reality is the system is bad. And it's a major problem. I don't know what the solution's going to be, besides creating some sort of really strong program where we can get highly qualified and trained people to come here, or like, honestly, robot caregivers. Like, I don't know what the
Yeah.
solution is, because we have a huge problem on our hands with this.
Yeah.
Major issue. No, I think that all three of us should probably go down to the state and legislation and fight somebody. Number one,
Yeah.
on having requirements. But yeah,
Yeah.
also they should incentivize truly people getting into these industries. We see it across the board in a lot of different industries. This one obviously being the biggest, which is why I brought it up too.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself ever struggling to compete with the Brookdales and all those different large, massive entities that put all this marketing dollars, can offer the big 401ks, all the cool benefits? Because obviously there's way cool of a package on your end, and it's only 5-1. There's, I'm sure, culture and everything is so much better when it comes to you comparatively to one of these big organizations.
Staffing wise, we don't have nearly as much turnover as the big boxes. It's really bad in larger facilities. In smaller care homes, it's so culture driven that the loyalty from the staff is above and beyond. When we first got started, I was a lot more hands-on with them. So I knew all of them by name and all of that. And I was more involved because I really wanted to learn the system so that I could become more hands-off and implement everything we needed to kind of automate as much as possible. So if we would have a caregiver who'd say, hey, I'm running late, my tire, just busted on the highway and I'm not going to be there, whatever, this is what's going on. I would be like, okay, where are you? Like, okay, great. I'm going to send an Uber and I'm going to come get the car for you and I'll get you a new tire. And that answer alone has gotten me all sorts of responses, right? Some responses that say, oh, never mind, I'll be there in 15. Other responses which are like, oh my God, you do that for me? And when you go and do that, that caregiver, if they were even on the verge of quitting, like that tire to me is nothing when I'm making $10K a month on this house. A $300 to $500 tire, I'll do it all day.
Yeah.
To them, that could be their whole week's pay. That could be a big, that could have been their groceries that they needed for their kids for the week. So the care that we're able to give, not just to the seniors, but to the caregivers, really allows for a deeper culture than just like when you walk into the home. It's, we care about you.
Yeah.
We ask them all the time, what's your vision? What do you want to be in life? And many times it's like, hey, I really wanted to be a nurse, but I only was able to get this certification. And it's like, if I could help you apply for scholarships and get you into community college to get you on that path, would you want to do that? That changes everything. A boss has never said that to them. A boss has never cared about them in that way. So I think appreciating, loving, taking care of your staff. When you take care of your staff, they take care of your seniors. And that's why I don't have to be in the home, because all I have to do is love on them. And they do.
It's a testament to the operation.
That's top-down leadership,
Yeah,
right
that's how it
there.
needs to
I
be.
love
It's
it,
servant leadership.
and you're casting a vision for them and knowing that there's growth there. I just got goosebumps. It's like,
love
that's
that
what a
stuff.
true leader looks like, in my opinion. So that's marvelous. I
It's
really
so
love
good.
that. Yeah.
I do have another question.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to,
I got to interview you last year. So
I know, I'm
get
so
to ask all
sorry.
the
I never
questions.
get to. I had to figure these things out the hard way and do it all myself.
Yeah.
So I'm like, now I got an expert that I can bounce this off of. This is great. So on a residential assisted living, somebody goes, okay, I am sold on doing this. I want to do it. Another question that's going to come up for people is, am I only going to do private pay, or should I accept All-Tex? And for those who are listening that don't know what All-Tex is, it's the state Medicaid program for seniors to have their care paid for when they are at a community. It's the easiest way to think about it is it's Section 8 for the seniors when it comes to their care, if for real estate investor people. But I'm curious why for you it's you're more so just focused on the private pay as opposed to incorporating All-Tex or just doing an All-Tex type of property.
There are a lot of homes that do accept that. And nationally, if you're not from Arizona listening, it's called something else wherever you are.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of homes that accept that. To me, it's really hard to make those margins work. Many times they may be paying out like $1,800 up to $2,800 per resident. It's really, really low. So for me to be able to pay my staff fairly, for me to be able to buy quality, healthy, clean food, for me to be able to keep the lights on, get them activities every day, and do all of these above and beyond experiences, the income from those sources is just not enough. And many times the families that are relying on that, they're not the type of family that's like, oh, that'll pay the $1,800, I'll pay the rest. if they had the rest, they would have been going the private pay route. There's also a phrase that, don't hate me for saying this, but it's true in assisted living. The more they pay, the longer they stay. This is very, very true, because what happens is if you are waiting if money's tight, you're going to wait until the very last second to move your loved one in, because money's tight and you don't have the money to do this. You don't have the resources to do this. When you have the resources and you go home for Christmas and mom or dad has moldy food in the fridge, you're like, oh my God, they need assisted living. And you move them in way earlier for something that, like, did they really need it for? We see this happen all the time, because I have what we call a level 3 home, a level 4, and a level 5. Our level 5, the rates are almost $9,000 a month. And these homes are not that far from each other. They're all 20 minutes from each other. The level 3 home rates are about $4,500 a month. The differences of how long people stay in the $9,000 a month home, people are staying for 3+ years in that home. In the lower end home, we've had people there for 2 months. We've had people there for 6 months. The average stay is so much shorter because they're waiting until that last second. The people who are more affluent move you in earlier, and then you can kind of stay and age. So genuinely, as a business owner, it's kind of one of those games you just have to play. The number has to match what the market can bear. But if you can, get private pay in your area, I highly suggest going that route.
That's super interesting. And it makes me think of Alex Hormozy, because he talks a lot about pricing to what the customers expect and want. And you're right. I mean, I really love that you have a tiered level approach, because that feels more inclusive, right? Like trying to get the care, because at the end of the day, honestly, a residential assisted living, again, going back to the ratios, your family is going to get taken care of way more differently and way more caringly than a much bigger operation. Again, I don't want to completely talk down to those facilities either, because I mean, I've been in them. We operate with them quite a bit, and they still do provide a service, because at the end of the day, to your point, if they can't pay, they need an alternative opportunity, and that is an alternative.
Yeah.
So interesting though, like
Super,
the model
super
of like,
interesting.
bring your prices up and you're going to get the client you're actually wanting
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
It is true. And really the main differences between those homes, because some of my caregivers will work at all 3 of those homes. So it's not like the care is vastly different. It's honestly location and amenities. In our highest end home, we have a private chef. We have activities every single day. The bedrooms and bathrooms are just larger, right? And the backyard's huge, like different things like that. And it's located in a prime area. In our level 3 home, it's the caregivers who do the cooking and cleaning. So not a private chef, right? They don't have activities every day. They have them 3 times a week. The bedrooms and bathrooms are significantly smaller. The backyard's smaller. Like it's not that the care is different, it's amenities. And when you are more affluent, you are looking at that big, beautiful chandelier when you walk into the Brookdale, and you're looking at the pickleball court and the swimming and the salsa dancing on Tuesdays. And daughter Judy walks in and goes, oh, Mom's gonna love pickleball. And mom can barely take 4 steps without support and assistance. She's not playing pickleball.
Right.
True story. Actually, I walked a property out in North Scottsdale, and I walked it with a couple of folks who've been in the RAL community for a really long time. Actually, I think they mentioned you, and I can't remember their name. Sorry, it was a while ago now, though.
No worries.
It was like early summer. And they're like, yeah, this is a really nice backyard. No one's coming out here. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I went to one that's right across the street from my house, and they have an entire farm with chickens, and it's like a whole 2 acres behind the house that they have fully farmed out so people can feel like they're on the farm. I've been there probably 30 times and I've never seen a single person out there.
No.
I've been there when it's beautiful out. They just don't.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that says, a man with no wealth has 1,000 wishes, and a man with no health has just one. And I think of that when I walk into an assisted living home, because if you've ever lost your health or been around a loved one who has, it's all you think about. You're not thinking about what you're wearing tomorrow or what you're eating for dinner. Like, you are just focused on that one next breath or that one next step, or just what is right in front of you in that moment, the pain dissipating or whatever the case it is. And that's what these seniors are going through. They're not thinking about all this other stuff. It's just about their health in that moment.
Yeah. From a marketing standpoint for you, and I know that we kind of talked a little bit about the demographics, but from like a tactical standpoint, like what are some of the things you're doing? Are you direct mail sending out? Like, are you looking at like demographics of like age groups and letting people know like you exist in that area? Is it word of mouth? Like, how has it worked for you?
A lot of word of mouth. You definitely want all of kind of the regular marketing. You want a website, you want a Facebook page. Daughter Judy's probably not on TikTok, but she's definitely on Facebook. So you want that community presence virtually as well as in person. Sometimes we'll attend like farmers markets. We will like flyer just like within the little neighborhood surrounding, not too far out. I also think having open houses, like obviously when you first open, having a grand opening is great, but randomly throughout the year, whether it's your anniversary of your opening party, you should always be marketing. The average stay in a care home is 3.5 years. So you're not having incredibly high turnover, but I will say there's always a weird rule of three when senior moves on to the next life. It's like boom, boom. And all of a sudden, you three invest. I don't know why this happens. And so you just stay more just because your role doesn't mean you marketing. You can use those and all the community, but you all your website, your book, and your flyer and houses, because the more you get through the door, the more people and walk, and now spread the word. Now, oh, you had needs this house a month leads.
Yeah. Is things that you give that you would want to spend
in to be marketing, and you want to make doing right on part, right? And then okay, whatever. You have relationships.
The offerings that you made for those who are interested in me, like because they wanted to know, but how can they and figure that out?
Offerings, and then right, it's the month of November, Black Friday. I have an incredible count of both, which is long. We host the next ones coming up week of December. A to Z, how single step you need to state the license, through the home, like hire your staff, all the paperwork, cap, everything, asset, you name it. So you're leaving and understanding exactly how to do this. We also have an online home study course that's available, to anybody to take and go at your own speed. You could take it as many times as you want or need. There's a Q&A section at the end of each video session. So I log on each morning and answer our students' questions. It's not as in-depth, but it is a really good, let me dip my toes and see if this is the right fit for me. So if you are listening and, you want to take action, there is never going to be a better price than this month, for real. So go check it out.
Yeah. And because you have that national presence, and by the way, I commend you for taking the approach of, because I know a little bit of the story about you and your dad and how you guys created the association across the nationwide to help protect these mom and pop, rallies. Yeah. Really, that's what they are. And making sure that they get presence in the policies and laws that are being created, fighting HOAs who don't want to have them in the neighborhood, which for me, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like old people in your neighborhood. They ain't gonna throw a party.
It's
What's wrong
quiet.
with you?
I grew up next to one actually, and I
Yeah,
was like, I
I'm
never
like,
knew
this
what
is
was
the
going
best
on.
place ever.
The occasional fire truck.
Yes, yes.
The once a quarter fire truck that would come by. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But that part is just always interesting to me when I see HOAs pushing back on this. And anywho, so thank you for taking that leadership. I mean, obviously you're a great leader. I mean, even by how you're presenting the way you manage the culture, but helping basically impact this business in a way that it can carry on. Because you see that national presence or lack of presence, and I'm going to kind of throw a left field out there, but the fact that you knew about Cincinnati, maybe you have this. If you could name like the top 5 cities that you think have the biggest opportunity for us to help prepare RALs and really serve the community, do you think that you could name those off? Again, if you can't, that's totally okay, because I can appreciate I brought this question without any homework before.
That's okay. I will say there's a couple of things to consider. So in general, blue states are typically harder on small business. If you are trying to start a business in New York City, in California, in Chicago, they're usually not as business friendly. Red states are typically a lot more business friendly. I think that's why we saw a lot of businesses move over the last couple of years to a lot of red states.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, there are a lot of care homes in Arizona and Florida. They are, I'm not going to use the word saturated because they're not. Like one of my homes is on a home that has only 20 homes on that road, and 8 of the 20 are care homes.
Wow.
And yet I'm full with a waiting list. So we're not saturated yet, but there are a ton of care homes in Arizona or Florida. So yes, it is easier to get the home up and running because the rules and regs are very clearly laid out. You follow the recipe and you can do it just like the thousands of others before you have done. You go to a state, for example, somewhere in the Northeast, Connecticut, our student opened the first home there. Rhode Island, our student opened the first home there. Vermont, same thing. New Hampshire, same thing. Like those areas, tons of seniors with a ton of wealth and nothing besides big boxes.
That is so crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yep. So I would, when people come to our training and they're from the Northeast and they're like, oh, Arizona's so nice, maybe I'll do it here. I'm like, no, stay at home because they need it. And their rates are astronomically high. So because the cost of living is so much higher up there too. So I love the Northeast if you're willing to jump through the hoops, because obviously it's very blue up there. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to jump through the hoops, they need it so bad. And when you open, you're one of one. So you will naturally like be full and have a waiting list, and they'll be begging you to open more. You're educating the market up there because not many of these exist. Here, we're not educating the market. Here, you're in competition. So it's just a whole nother ball game. Another area that I would say is actually really good is Minnesota. Minnesota has average rates of like $10,000 to $12,000 per month per resident.
Wow.
I don't know why. I mean, I've visited our students up there and I'm like, it's nice, but what's going on here? So I don't know what's going on, but their rates are crazy high. Alaska's rates are crazy high. Same thing, from 10 to 12. So I will say there's pros and cons to everywhere. Live where you want, invest where makes sense. Just because you're, buying a care home out there does not mean you have to live out there. 31% of care home owners are remote owners. So you don't need to live where you are, especially if you're going to do it, more passively like I do, or be a landlord like Ingrid. You don't need to live there, So I will say red states are easier, but a lot of states that are blue, it's very needed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point.
By the way, when she brought data, by the way, that's so sexy. I love data.
Oh.
Yeah. So 31%, you heard it here.
Oh gosh. Well, I would assume too the Minnesotas, the Alaskas, we were talking about a smaller population. We're talking about the cost of actually getting a caregiver out there, the cost of all of it, right? And then there's also less options to choose from, I'm sure, when it comes to a care home as well.
You can
all that stuff starts to,
Well, what I was thinking about Alaska is because Alaska actually gives a stipend to their residents at the end of the year or starting in the year. So that might also inflate those prices simply because they should have more like in the bank.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that.
No,
That's super interesting.
actually, well, I learned that in community college. I had 2 girls from Anchorage who I played softball with, and they're like,
Wow.
yeah, they pay us so much every year for living in Alaska, and it's like, yeah, nobody wants to live up there, so
That makes
it's
sense.
cold.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many people. Anyway, I won't get too sidetracked. I was about to go into a whole Alaska story.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's super, super interesting. Now, what about the Sun Belt? I would assume the Sun Belt has to be a good area, and I don't know how saturated are you seeing that it is? Because my first thought when I think assisted living is Arizona, Florida, like you mentioned.
Yep.
They're the most saturated. Doesn't mean that there's no opportunity. It's just there's such a need, and
Right.
so many people move to those states solely for that. They go from the Minnesotas to an Arizona because they go, I don't want the cold. I want to be retired somewhere that I'm actually going to enjoy it. What about Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, all those there at the bottom that are all technically red states?
Yeah, we are having a lot of students coming from those areas where, to be honest, real estate is still relatively inexpensive. A place like Louisiana has, to me, a perfect trifecta. Real estate's inexpensive, labor is inexpensive. For some reason, their rates of their caregivers are super high. So we have students out in Louisiana cash flowing $20K a month on an 8-bed home.
Oh,
Yeah.
bruh.
So there are certain markets that are like, boom, like amazing. Also in Louisiana, you have parishes and a big, what do they call it? Old boys club. So you kind of got to know the right people to get around the right things. So there's pros and cons to everywhere. And that's why it is hard for me to say like, this is the right place. But Georgia, we've got a lot of students out there. It's super popular there. Great area for this. I do like Louisiana as long as you are getting that trifecta, because there's also areas where the rates are not high. So we want to avoid that. Florida and Arizona are a little bit more saturated, and Texas, we have so many people who are moving to Texas right now. Things are becoming more and more expensive there, but Texas is amazing for any type of small business, and especially RAL. I do love Texas for this.
As you start looking at the future of RAL and how this evolves, what are some of the visions that your academy or you personally have for the next 5 years in terms of your influence? Like how you think you can actually impact our country, really?
Yeah, our mission as a company is to positively impact 10 million people by providing high quality assisted living in a residential home environment. And, the best way I can do that is to continue coming on platforms like this, continue doing trainings and educating people on how to take those next steps to actually make this happen. We're not going to, be able to have just 10 million seniors. It's not just the seniors. It's the caregivers who help them. It's the daughter Judys who are involved. It's the granddaughter Zoes who see that their loved one is getting the top quality care. It's everyone involved. But together we can do this. And we highly encourage people, when they learn about these methods, to create a 3-pack, 3 homes within 20 to 40 minutes of each other, because it really helps you share resources. Having one of these is actually harder than having 2 to 4, because one, you have a lot of expenses that if you had more homes, you could share those expenses. Even your care staff, they're probably not working full-time even if they are working full-time, many times it's like a nurse. They're on for 3, off for 4, or vice versa. Those other 3 or 4 days, they're not off. If you don't have another home, they're working at a Brookdale down the road. But if you have multiple homes, they get to work full-time for you here, full-time for you here. You don't have to pay overtime, and they get to stay in the same work culture and environment. So it's really a win-win for everyone. So having more actually makes it easier. And a 3-pack is kind of beautiful because typically one administrator can easily oversee 2 to 4 homes. That's full-time for them. One home is usually not full-time for them. So if everybody opened a 3-pack, we could not only help all the seniors get quality care, but also, the owners and operators becoming financially free and being able to cash flow like they never have before, being able to spend time with their loved ones and take that woo-saw breath and not have to worry about expenses going up and gas costing more. Like that, you're not going to think about it. You're not even going to look at the gas price when you're cash flowing, as well as some of our students are, and you've got 3 of these. Like that eases a lot of worry and stress and pain in people's lives. And I want to help be a part of that.
I love it.
You
I
are
love
so
it. I
cool.
know. I'm like, you
I'm
heard
like,
it here,
you're
guys.
breaking it down. I'm like, you're so
Go
cool.
get you a 3-pack. Go get you a
Yeah.
3. I think I want a 3-pack.
I don't
I mean,
want
I
just
used to
one.
want a 6-pack, and now I want a 3-pack. No, so that's wonderful. And obviously one of the ways that we operate our business is that we try to communicate and create relationships with assisted living or with RALs. We have a couple of RALs that we tell them, if you ever come into a scenario where a senior needs to sell their personal home, their personal belongings, they need to get some estate planning, so their trusts or their wills, like, we can be that resource so that they don't have to take that on. And so would love to see how maybe we can even partner with you to say, how can we be that resource, especially for your RALs here in Arizona? Because one of the things that we found out in the bigger count community, right, the facilities, is that it takes them 6 to 9 months to transition that future resident into a current resident. And so we help them cut that to 2 to 4 weeks. And it's because we'll even do bridge loans and not charge the senior any interest, which is something very, I would say, gets taken advantage of quite often in this industry. And Stephen and I wanted to make sure that that is not the way we approach this business. So
our goal is to keep as much money in the seniors' pockets as possible, because the cost of care is continuing to go up, and then the level of care that people need over time is going to continue to go up as well. You don't typically just get diagnosed with dementia, go into a memory care community, and then you just stay the same. You're typically going to decline, and it's going to require more care, and we've seen that across the board. So that's where we've been able to really partner up and make our name in the industry too, is all of the communities need to be able to convert these individuals, and they need somebody to help them through it. So we really give everybody, I always say, we're selling peace of mind. We're allowing people the opportunity to afford the care for the long term, the care that they actually deserve, and helping them with that transition entirely.
It's a beautiful thing you guys are doing, because so many seniors, when I say that we get private pay, people are like, where do people come up with this, money to pay for it? And many times it is selling their real estate and using that capital to pay for their care needs. They may have savings, they may have an IRA, they may have, capital long-term care insurance or something put away for this. But a lot of times they are going to be relying on the sale of that home. And if that takes a while and they need the assistance, the family is now in this strange limbo. So it's a really beautiful thing that you guys are able to do and speed that up. And kudos to you, because you're helping a lot of families with that transition period, which is not an easy
No, it's
time.
not. And you get the siblings fighting, right? You got the son that's in Texas, the daughter that's in Washington. How are we going to help mom who's here? And being able to be the mediator for them and bring it all together, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And we have our own stories too, that like our goal with our company is to make sure that we make that as like painless as possible, because we have our own stories where grandmas died on both sides of our stories, and now there's infighting over the property, over their belongings, over all these things, when technically we should have been celebrating the beautiful lives they lived and not have that strain on our family. So we want to help families avoid that, and hopefully, right, before mom or dad passes away, that we're giving them the care they deserve. So if they've already identified, they have to go somewhere and be taken care of, now it's a life or death scenario. Both our scenarios that we live through, it's like they need to be somewhere being taken care of. And so if they've identified that, the faster we do that, the better it is for the senior.
Well, it becomes a danger to be in their own home at a certain point, as well, as I'm sure you see too, Isabel. It's as I start to see somebody's health decline, I start to see the property decline, because if the window breaks, they don't replace it. There's a flood in the house, they don't replace it. I'd say 90% of the houses that I've ever gone to help these families are in complete shambles, and it's a very sad situation, actually. So the ability to get them out of that and put them in a beautiful home like yours is life-changing to them. They never even imagined that they could live the lifestyle that they're living now at Isabel's residential assisted living because of where they came from. Truly. One house I got was, all the furniture, everything in the house was eaten by rats, all that kind of stuff. And then he ended up going to the most beautiful farm. And I was like, he's like, I've never lived somewhere this nice before. Oh my gosh.
You're like, you should have moved in sooner.
I know, seriously. So Isabel, if people want to get connected with you, learn from you on how they can get their 3-pack, like where could they go?
Yeah, head to ral101.com. It's a great website that has a bunch of free resources. You can catch a webinar, schedule a call with me or the team, download a free book, whatever you want. It's all there, trail101.com.
Okay. And do you want to drop a little bit about the do you still do your podcast?
I do.
All
I have
right.
two podcasts. We've got an assisted living one called Assisted Living Network, where I give quick, short episodes. They're like 5 to 10 minutes every Friday on all sorts of topics, assisted living. So make sure to like and subscribe, Assisted Living Network. And then I have another one, which is targeted towards entrepreneurs under the age of 40 who own all sorts of different businesses. We have episodes each Wednesday. It's called Young Boss Podcast. I do a couple solo episodes just on topics and things I've learned over the years, managing 8 businesses and a team of 50 people. But also I interview other young entrepreneurs who own their own businesses. And it's been so cool to learn from so many amazing people all over the country, and a lot of Arizona people who own and operate stuff who are just really kicking ass and taking names. Like, it's so cool to talk to these young bosses. So check out both of those, Young Boss Podcast and Assisted Living Network.
That's so cool.
good.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
love this.
Well, it's been a treat to have you on here, and we hope to have you again. And so you said your next 3-day is in December?
Yes, it's that very first weekend in December. I think it's like the 5th through the 8th.
Okay, the 5th through the 8th. And then is that the only activity, the other, yeah, I see it, 5th through the 8th. So
5th through the 8th, that's our last one for the rest of the year. But the Black Friday special is going on right now until the end of the month. So you can sign up for any of the upcoming trainings in 2025 with that discount. So if that date doesn't work for anybody listening, pick another date, but get that discount before it goes away.
Right on. Well, very
so
cool. Well, thank you so much, Isabel. We really appreciate you being on the podcast, and we hope that you will come on again soon.
Yeah.
Of course.
Let's check in
We'll
another
talk
year.
soon.
Let's see how it's all going.
I love it.
All right, guys. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Explain It podcast.